Let me ask you a question. How many millionaires do you know have become wealthy through investing in savings accounts? Not many, but cash does always have a place in anyone's finances. And I'm going to share with you 5 ways to get a better return on your cash saving. So since the financial crisis, it's been pretty hard to get a decent return on your cash savings. Interest rates have been at record lows, and then you've got the other problem, which is inflation. The cost of increasing in prices going up and up, so actually means you're losing money in real terms because your savings rate is not keeping up with the level of inflation and the rise in prices. Now, you may have come across some of these newer companies like RateSetter, Zopper, offering larger interest rates, 5, 6, 7, 8% a year. But you need to be very careful with these because, as with anything, the higher return you look to get, the more risk that comes with it. And these companies aren't actually bank savings accounts. They're something quite different. They're called peer-to-peer lenders, which basically means you're giving your money to the peer-to-peer company and they are lending it out to borrowers. And if these borrowers default, then you could be in trouble. But before we get on to how to get a better return from your cash savings, why should we have cash savings anyway if it's not beating inflation? Well, there's always a reason to hold cash, and there's actually 2 main reasons. The first being that it should be an emergency, a source of emergency funds for you. So if you have cash savings available to the equivalent of 6 to 12 months of your monthly spending, should something happen to you, you lose your job, or there's a big expense to do with the house, perhaps your boiler breaks down and you've got to find a couple of £1,000 to fix it, you've always got that emergency fund there to access quickly and help pay for that spending without having to go to credit cards and start getting yourself into debt. The second reason to hold cash is for one-off large expenses that you've got coming up. So if in the next 2, 3, 5 years you're going to need some cash to pay for a large expense, you probably want to keep that in cash now rather than invest it. Because the problem, if you invest it, the markets will always be up and down, and you could find in 2, 3, 5 years the market's actually dipped significantly and the amount you've put away is actually worth a lot less than it was when you started. So we know the reason why we need cash. How can we get a better return on cash? Well, number 1, do your research. Now, this seems a pretty obvious one, but there's lots of different banks out there now offering lots of different rates, and it's highly competitive. It changes week by week. So always make sure you check the best buy tables, the comparison sites to find the latest best rate. 2, this is one for security. Always check the bank you use is covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So a lot of the newer banks or banks offering headline rates, maybe from abroad, they may not be covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme. So if something happens to them and they go bust, you could lose all your savings. So most British high street banks will be covered by this scheme, and it will cover up to £85,000 worth of your cash deposits in their bank. Number 3, be a bit smarter with your money. So some of the best interest rates of up to, say, 5% are actually offered on the bank's current accounts or through their regular savings products. Now, these usually come with a catch. You usually have to either deposit so much money into the account each month, or there's a small fee to pay, and you usually have to have some direct debits going out. But that's not a problem because you can recycle your money. You can actually deposit your money into the account and then move it somewhere else afterwards. And as for direct debits, you can set up 1 or 2 really cheaply. You can set up a direct debit to a charity for £1, or use your direct debit for the National Lottery, just so you can get the better interest rate. And make sure you use tax efficient cash ISAs for your savings. The interest allowance is only up to £1,000 for basic rate taxpayers and £500 for higher rate taxpayers. So if you're earning more interest than either of those 2 amounts, then you might end up paying tax on it, but you won't if you get it inside a cash ISA. Number 4, get yourself a good diary system in place so that if you've secured a good interest rate for a year or so, make sure you know exactly when it finishes so you can look up and get another one afterwards. You won't believe the amount of times I've come across people that have done really well, so they've secured a good interest rate, and then it's got to the end of the term and they've just left it there for a couple of months and it's gone on to a really tiny variable rate. So make sure you know exactly when all your savings accounts are planned to mature so you can get prepared and get the next good rate as soon as it finishes. Number 5, this is a big one if you're a first time buyer looking to save some cash for your first home. There are 2 types of ISAs that can help with this, a help to buy ISA and a lifetime ISA. Both ISAs will benefit from a 25% government bonus, which will beat any interest rate you can ever find on savings accounts. So remember, cash has a place and you just got to be a bit smarter with your money. You can get a better rate out there. You just need to look around, do a little bit of work and make the banks work to your advantage.